Good morning, guys. I'm Chris, and this is Regular Guy Training, and I am going to be on the road for what feels like a billion fucking years, doing a whole bunch of non-essential activity, according to fucking communists. But I'm going to go ahead and talk about this because I have the time, and I get a million questions about it, especially after I posted that extended review on the CZP-10C. That's got a dot and a compensator on it and that kind of shit. So, why am I etching? So, with all that said, right, I'm going to start with a couple of things, and then I'm going to go into what a lot of people say about dots on handguns, trying to discourage people from carrying a dot on a handgun, and you'll more or less understand my perspective, right? Now, as far as things that you will notice right away when you pick up a handgun with a dot on it is if you're trying to go fast, it'll be a little bit of a problem to pick up that dot as quick as you did your irons, right? And really all this is it's a hand-eye coordination issue, and well, it's actually a three-parter. It's a hand-eye coordination issue, right? That's number one. Number two, because the actual optic is raised slightly from your irons, you're used to lining them up a particular way, but now the dot itself is physically a little bit higher than your irons were, and getting that sorted out as far as your hand-eye coordination is concerned can be a little challenging, and it was for me, for sure, because I'd shot iron-sighted handguns as far as self-defense, duty purposes, all that stuff, since always. I've played with a lot of dots on handguns, and I've been paying attention to them really since like 2012, but I haven't like dedicated a million rounds to a dot on a handgun. I'm carrying this every day just like this and go from there, right? But as far as all that is concerned, all it really is a hand-eye coordination issue. Something that helped me out a lot, and I'm going to reference him here because dude's been very helpful on the red dot side of the house as far as a handgun is concerned. I'm going to reference Aaron Cowan from Sage Dynamics. I was listening to a couple of things that he was talking about on it. Great channel, by the way. Go see him. Good school. Go train with him. But probably the best thing that I heard is a two-parter. One, it's not a set of pistol irons. Focus on your target area instead of your dot. It'll speed things up significantly, and it'll also reduce a lot of the perceived movement in the glass. Because that's the second thing you notice, is that it feels like you have fucking seizure hands when that's the actual movement that you see. So that's the real movement you have in your hands, and you're seeing it for the first time because you're paying attention to this digitally emitted thing in front of you. So if you pay attention to your target area versus the dot itself, not only will the dot be clearer, it'll just reduce a lot of that just perceived seizure-iness in there. The second one is when you line up the handgun and you're trying to get the hand-eye coordination down, the back plate on the slide of the handgun, if you line that up to your nose, that reduces the vast majority of those issues. And that's the main reason why I'm referencing Aaron Cowan here, is because that instantly fixed a lot of shit as far as just me starting out with a dot on a handgun and that. And that reinforces good habits. And those good habits are absolutely something that you need, especially with the hand-eye coordination. So you'll notice those things right away. Now, that being said, once you start to shoot with it a bit, the following is very, very quick to figure out. Number one, being able to zero a handgun is marvelous, right? Yes, I understand adjustable irons exist, but typically speaking, they're significantly more fragile than fixed counterparts, especially when you start beating them off of 2x4s and shit, trying to get stoppages clear or whatever. That's number one. Number two, the adjustments in them are fucking massive. Okay. Now, a Trijicon RMR individual click is 1 whole ass minute. of angle. But that's still quite a bit finer than a lot of the adjustable irons that are out there. And you'll notice that a lot of them are starting to go to the way of the Dodo. The side of guys that basically have to compete in this particular division that has irons in them. I got that, right? So, and then again, those people aren't doing one-handed manipulations off of 2x4s. It's just not the same thing. So they can be a little more precise with those irons. That's not my point. The point is that being able to zero your handgun, your self-defense handgun, which to me is very important, is a thing. Second, you'll also notice that as far as just shot placement and everything else, you instantly start to learn a lot about you, because you'll start to notice that if you flinch the shit out of a shot, because all of us do it, you see that in the dot. You see it move. And that lets you know that you done fucked up. There's no questions anymore. There's no, yeah, that probably felt bad. Or if you're having a bad day, there's no, dude, that felt good, what the fuck? You see it. You know what happened before anything else. Before the bullet arrives, you already know whether or not it's going to hit, which is fantastic, right? So you learn a lot about you individually and how much discipline you got on the trigger. And if you're like me, when you first get on a dotted handgun, you'll feel like the most undisciplined fucker ever, because you just see a lot of extra movement in there. So, you know, there's all that to consider. Now, all of that said, what's also kind of cool about it is that when you're starting to learn that hand-eye coordination and that kind of stuff, when you superimpose the image onto the target area, and then you take your focus from the target area where it's floating and then put it on the dot, figure out where it is in the glass, you learn even more about your hand-eye coordination, and where you can fine-tune little things to where every time you draw that or present that dot, it's centered in the glass, you know. And parallax isn't really that big of an issue on modern dots, especially because people are getting better and better and better at it by the day, right? But being as precise as possible is being as precise as possible. And if you can fine-tune it to that degree, you're doing something right. Okay? So those are a couple of self-evident things that will highlight themselves very quickly. Now, I'm going to get on to what a lot of people say negatively about dots in general, and we're just going to kind of go through them, and you'll understand my perspective once I get through them. Now, first thing, the number one thing that I hear about dots that's demonstrably false, actually, if you would just take the time and discipline required to learn and to gain experience on this thing, is that there's no discernible difference in speed up close between irons and a dot. And what this person is generally banking on to make it sound okay to other people in their head is because you're up close, statistically speaking, there's no real difference there, right? But they're really talking about two things. Number one, they're talking about something that's demonstrably false, and that is that a set of irons is going to be faster than a dot. If you're well trained, that's absolutely false. And the reason why is that there's just less shit for your brain to do. Because what sounds like more work to you? Okay, focusing on your target area, superimposing a digital image in front of your face, putting it on the target area, being able to take in your target foreground and background and press, or taking a solid object, putting it up in front of your face, lining it up in the center of an object, which relative to you is in front of it, right? Because the rear sight is closer to your face than the front sight. So putting that farther away object inside of this near object, focusing on a farther object, making this blurry, putting all this together on another object that you're also keeping blurry while trying to keep track of the other blurs in the foreground and background of that blur, tracking it while it's moving, and also dealing with the pressure of it trying to cause you bodily harm or death. What sounds like what sounds like a heavier tax on your brain? Making the center of your visual acuity under time is life stress do that, or focus on target area, superimpose image. There's less for your brain to process, and while both of these can be done fast, the more efficient thing is going to be faster across the board, especially when you start actually measuring it. And these people usually really hate the idea of a shot timer, because when you start to say, well, my splits or my draw times say my average, this is me personally now, my average if I'm going at cruising speed is 0.2 or 0.2 of a second faster, just across the board. And then if I'm really trying to move, and stay competent, so that's different from moving as fast as possible, but if I'm really trying to move and stay competent, it's usually something like 3.5, 0.4 seconds faster than with a set of irons. They usually at that point say, oh, well, that's competition stuff. That's not. No, I'm sorry. The skill set has to also match the mindset. Okay, you can have the best tactical brain on the fucking planet, but if you don't have the skills to match, you still lose. Okay? And the skills don't just mean the gunfighting or fistfighting part. The skills encapsulate a bunch of shit. But if we're talking about just shooting, the skills have to match the brain. And if your skills are at a certain point to where it's not taxing to do the shooting part, your brain can figure out other shit. So the faster, more efficient thing that's less taxing on the brain is going to help the tactical brain solve the chess match, right? Okay, and it sounds like I'm really splitting hairs, but I'm not, because we've already had this discussion with rifles. Okay? It's just the reason why that people bring this up, more than likely, is because most likely the second one, and the second one that I hear all the time. The second one is that I hear all the time how people say, time is life situation, or when the chips are down, I don't want to have to be fishing for a dot. Well, the problem is that if you're fishing for a dot, you're bad, right? And I hate to just say it like that, but if you're fishing for a dot, you're bad, and you need to make yourself not bad. This is a different sighting system. So you have to learn the hand-eye coordination to make yourself not bad. And that means being able to present the gun fast and on target. Running the gun at a really high tempo and keeping the dot in the glass. Being able to do that, both of those things, on the move. You have to be able to do those things and match them with your tactical brain, right? So you can actually do this stuff. So if you're hunting for dots and that kind of stuff, you need to train that hand-eye coordination to be where it needs to be. In goofy positions and shit too. This isn't just flat range, go straight here kind of deal. You need to be able to do this one-handed, rolled on your side, doing whatever it is that you got to do, because you're not trained up on that sighting system. Anybody can line up a set of irons, but the thing is that what a lot of people figure out is as time goes on, you can present those irons fast as shit, but after a while you start to realize that while I can present and see them fast as shit, sometimes I have to confirm their alignment. When you're starting to really move like quicker, and you're starting to really split hairs, and you're really starting to excel, and really start to push that skill ceiling, you notice that your alignment needs fine-tuning at certain points. You can't just get away with shit all the time. That's the same thing with a dot, man. That's all it is. So the whole fishing for a dot thing, it's a skills issue, and it's an experience issue. Okay? So marvelously retarded. Like, I can understand where their paranoia comes from, but these are also the same people that tell you not to buy gadgets by bullets. Okay, I got it. Why does your rifle have a dot on it then? Next thing. And this is a pretty good segue, because a lot of people are just kind of like, why would I put that kind of money into a handgun, right? Why would I spend, $1,400, $1,500, $1,600 on a handgun, right? Because the CZP-10C that I have on my body, with the barrel with the threaded barrel compensator and dot and light on it, costs pretty close to $4. And by the way, the cost for the cutting and all that other crap is concerned. By the time all that was done, we were pretty close to 4 CZP-10Cs. Okay, so a lot of people would say, why instead of buying 4 handguns, would I put all this money into one handgun? First thing, that's retarded, and that sounds like California talk to me. California politician talk to me. Because what this starts to sound like is, what do you need that for? Now, I'm not saying they're not patriots, but I'm saying be careful of what you ask as far as what I need a certain thing for. Because then you can ask yourself, what do I need that dot on my rifle for? What do I need that Geisley in there for? What do I need that light for? What do I need that handguard that free floats my barrel for? Why do I need that hybrid compensator or full-on compensator? Why do I need that suppressor? You can justify that very easily by giving the specifics on why each individual part is there. Okay? Now, I understand that the basis of that argument is, don't use technology to solve skill problems. And I agree with that. You still have to do work. This isn't going to be a magic I'm suddenly good now receipt that you get in your hand because you have this gun with all this shit on it. Right? But when you say that, you look at your straight out the box Glock 19 with basically a set of fucking sights on it. That's it. And then you go talk shit to somebody that did everything they could possibly do to give themselves an edge, keep the gun reliable and that kind of shit, and also earned their skill. You should probably watch who you talk shit to, really. Because your rifle is like $2,000 now, seeing that everything's done, right? Because that's the optic, the mount, the light, the mount, the handguard, the trigger, the augmented controls, most likely. Okay? The Viltor A5 buffer that's in it, the muzzle device that's sitting on it. You start adding all that shit up, and suddenly we got a $2,000 rifle, or really close, like $1,700, something like that. Then you're going to talk shit to somebody. It doesn't make any sense to me. Okay? If you're willing to spend that much money on a home defense rifle, which you should have every advantage possible in your corner, because that rifle that's sitting on the nightstand is specifically reserved for people that are going to hurt your family if you don't have it up, running, and good to go. The same thought process should be carried over to the gun that you carry every day. Now, I'm not saying that everyone is able to carry a compensated dotted handgun and that kind of shit. I got that, right? I'm not fucking dumb. But, at the same time, if you can, why wouldn't you? Okay? Not even talking about compensators for a second. Let's talk about dots. All of the things that they give you. All the information they give you, the demonstrable improvement in speed and accuracy, just like a dot on a rifle, the greater ability to have an actual field of view, and in this case it's actually better because the housings for these dots are typically speaking farther away from your face, and if you focus on a target area, especially if you're really moving quickly, a lot of times you're not even really noticing the glass, right? You're not even really noticing the glass in the first place. So that's the whole world that you can see. Target foreground, background, to the left, right. You can see everything that's going on, and I can still hit this guy fast and precise. All the shit that they give you, right? Why would people then try to justify that they don't belong there? Okay, because the next one that I hear all the time is the reliability argument. And the reliability argument is absolutely fucking ludicrous because, again, just like rifles, there are dots that are duty ready and there are dots that are straight up not. Don't buy garbage, okay? At this point in the game, if it's a SIG, if it's a Vortex, if it's a no-name, don't buy it. If it's a Trijicon RMR, because the SRO is not duty rated and they do their very best to tell you it's not. But if it's a Trijicon RMR, if it's a Holosun 507 or 508 series, if it's a fucking Aimpoint Acro, and I'm sure there are a couple others, but those are, you know, the ones on the top of my head, that's duty rated stuff. It's going to be just fine. And here's the wild part about this whole thing too. What blows my absolute mind about this is that people will say, well, my irons will just be there the whole time. I've never seen a set of irons get lost and blah, blah, blah. First of all, if you're saying that, and you also try to tell me that you've trained a lot in a lot of different places with a lot of different people, one of these two things is a lie. Okay? Because if you've got the training, there is no possible way with the number of Glocks on the planet that you have not seen a front sight come loose. That's not possible. It's straight up not possible. I've been doing this. I've been training hard for a decade. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen a front sight come loose on a Glock. Most of the time, this is a knowledge issue. You know, you teach them what Loctite is, and that fixes the problem. What isn't a knowledge issue, and what is an ever-present thing that a lot of people don't talk about when they start talking about the reliability of the dot is rear sights get pushed in dovetails. It happens. Okay? It gets shoved all the way to the left or right. And now you're basically you either have the top edge of your front sight post to the extreme left or right on that rear sight, taking difficult shots. They're typically a little bit higher now because you're trying to drop that, push it just above the rear sight to make sure that you have good sight alignment, but you're holding a little low because now you know it impacts a little bit higher. And that's what you have to work with. Or you're working on hand-eye coordination only, right? To say that those irons are always going to be there is demonstrably false because all you have to do is Google image it. And if you've never seen it before, or if you haven't had it happen to you, because guys that do this for a while end up installing their own sights, okay? And when you're new and ignorant, sometimes you fuck up, right? I've done it, and then I learned. And then I see it happen all the time. Okay? To sit there and say that you've never seen it before and that it's never happened to you, it tells me one of two things. Either one, you're not very experienced, you don't shoot a lot. Okay? Or two, you're just lying about it. It's as simple as that. Okay? Now, if you have a crap dot on a gun and then expect it to do shit, you're gonna break it. That's what happens. And then these fucking idiots go on to I'mRight.com, the forum, and they say dots aren't for duty use and it's a Vortex or some shit like that. And no, it's not a very good optic, I'm sorry. So there's that, right? But, you know what I haven't seen come loose? Stop functioning, right? You know what I've never seen come loose ever is a Trijicon RMR. What I've never seen stop functioning altogether is an RMR Type 2, which is the one that's reinforced for pistols, the Type 1s. And in 2012, this argument was valid because there really weren't a whole lot of duty red dots for handguns, right? People were using a Trijicon RMR. That was not made for that shit. It was made for like submachine guns and stuff like that. So it would take terminal issues and that kind of stuff because there were only so many contact points. The Type 2 comes out and holy shit, it's beefed up for that specifically, right? I've never seen a Type 2 cease to function. I've seen a lot of fucking Holosun 507 and 508s. Never seen those function. Stop function. Stop functioning. Never seen them come loose either, because the Trijicon footprint is gloriously overbuilt. Because relatively speaking, you have two massive screws, relatively speaking to the slide, of course, but you have two massive screws holding this tiny bastard in there. They don't come loose. Okay? They don't. And what's wild about that is every once in a while you see people that make bad plates. Got it. Every once in a while you'll see screw shear because the Glock MOS is not very good as far as the plate is concerned. Okay, cool. You see ones and twos here and there. But if you use the right equipment, you get the right results. This isn't hard to figure out. Okay? So, the reliability thing doesn't make any sense. One of the favorite examples that I have is that we're out there training, you know, doing a class and that kind of stuff. I'm taking this class, I'm not teaching it. But in this particular instance, this dude's got a dot on a handgun, he's got suppressor height sights on it. He goes to draw this thing with some serious gusto, speed, and urgency out of an ALS. And as he's drawing it out of the ALS, it shears the front sight off the gun. That's fucking wild. I thought the dots were going to always be there. The backup iron got lost. So anyhow. Oh, and by the way, people start talking about covered emitters and that kind of stuff. Okay, let's cover this really quick. If your emitter gets covered, you have a set of backup irons. If the front side of your glass is covered, keep both eyes open, superimpose the dot on the image, focus on the target area, not the dot, and you won't even notice that a whole bunch of shit's on the front glass. If the glass gets absolutely shattered or both get covered by mud or snow or whatever, what you can use is what's called the guillotine technique. You take the two horns of that RMR, match them up on the shoulders. Okay, use the cutout in the top of the hood, match that up toward the top of the throat. You have your left or right now, and if you put a white dot in the center of that thing and run a white line all the way across the top edge of that RMR hood in the center, now you have your vertical. So you have your left, right, and your vertical based off of that dot. If you just see a dot, you're good. If you see a line, you're not. Bring it back down, and there you go. You're in the heart when you match these things up. Well, the 507, 508, you're using the top edge of that rounded hood to cover the jawline to teeth area, and you're still using the box to reference the shoulders on the left and right hand side versus using the corners to mark the top edges of the shoulders. And you can get it done out to a pretty decent distance that way. Okay? So I've got the dot. I've got the dot if the front side's covered. I got a set of backup irons. I have a guillotine technique. And then after all that, I have hand-eye coordination that I can still use. Whereas, if your rear sight gets drifted over a little bit, you have to move the front sight over, and now you're using a real compromised sight picture. And if your front sight gets loose or lost, you're down to hand-eye coordination only. What sounds more reliable to you? The one with more redundancy or less? So, this might sound kind of inflammatory, but guys that specifically try to ward people away from dots on handguns for self-defense or duty use, you don't know what you're talking about at all. You just don't. And it's more likely that you're warding these people away because you're bad with it. And that's irresponsible. So, well, that said, guys, if you want to come out with us, absolutely come out and do that. If you want to join us on Facebook, great. If you want to support us through Patreon, I absolutely love and adore your support. All the links for this stuff are in the description below. And remember, a regular guy's firearm is the last defense against tyranny. Easy.